Well, hey guys, welcome back to Kiwi Classics and Customs. Today we're coming to you from rural Kentucky, kind of middle of nowhere. Now, some of you will have seen earlier this year, I went and picked over a 58 Plymouth wagon for some parts for old Marge. And the same gentleman gave me a call, and he's picked himself up an old 57 Chrysler New Yorker, which has an electric bench seat in it. And he called me to see if I would be interested in that, which I am, and here I am. So yeah, back in Kentucky, about to pick over a 57 Chrysler New Yorker. Now, it's just over here, and as you can see, it's been already pretty well picked over. Anything that almost anything that identifies it as a 57 New Yorker is gone already, but it has an electric bench seat sitting. Well, the floor's mostly gone, but yeah, hoping we can. The upholstery is actually slightly better than the upholstery in Marge, believe it or not. But that's kind of neither here nor there. None of the colours match, but yeah, it's got the big grab handle on the back. The ashtray. So yeah, will it ever work again electrically? I guess time will tell. But yeah, it would have been a nice car in its day. It had the 392 Hemi in it, and yeah, but Dylan's already sold all the front clip and everything off it. So yeah, this was a fairly highly spec car. It was an AC car, power steer car, power brake car, had all the bells and whistles. Four-door sedan, which is not everyone's screaming out for four-door sedans, but still would have been a cool car. Would have been the big fins. I was hoping to kind of show you guys a bit, the cool big fins on it, but yeah, they are gone. Hopefully to a better home, and resurrecting another vehicle. But it's a shame to see them in this condition, but this guy Dylan really does part them out and does a good job of selling all the bits and pieces. He sold the roof just a week ago. I might grab that glove box door because I've got or at least the lock out of it, because I don't have one of those. And I'm going to keep looking around. This would have been cool. It's got a clock in the middle there. That the speedo's gone, but might even grab the turn signal switch out of it, because the one I've got is kind of a little bit is working now, but it's not working 100% because I'm missing one little tiny spring out of it. So I might see if I can grab that out of this thing, and yeah, so yeah, it's pretty wild, amazing. Like, there's just no rockers in it, no floors in it. It's yeah, but yeah, most of it's, well, as I say, gone to a better home. So I'm going to get up a bit close and personal with the seat and see if there's actually anything left bolting it in. But we'll have a look. I'll be back in a second. So here we are back at the shop. Made it out of Kentucky. Pretty sure I heard some banjos playing a couple of times, but we just kept my head down, kept going. So yeah, back at the shop. Going to start digging into this. Let's do it. So first thing I want to do is, I think this with a little persuasion will come up and out. There we go. That'll get the main squab out of the way. Yeah, so let's dig into this thing and see what we got. That's just your main positive and ground supply cables, and this is all. So we got the electric motor there, a relay there, And then this here is a transmission. Basically it's a three, in a way I guess you could call it a 3-speed transmission. Let's flip it over on its back and see if we can get a slightly different view. Right there you can see these are solenoids, little electric solenoids, which once the motor starts, the motor kicks in, gets power, the solenoids click and throw it and basically select one of these 3 cables that you can see. You see the 1, 2, 3 there. One's forward and back, one's up and down at the front of the seat, and then the other one's up and down at the back of the seat, which is where that's where the 6-way seat. It's definitely a 6-way electric seat, which I wasn't initially sure of, but yeah, I am now. This relay here, I'm kind of a little concerned about whether that's going to work or not. I had a quick look online to see if you could get replacement relays. Well, you can. There's one on eBay for $397 for a relay. So I'm really hoping that I can bring that one back from the dead, assuming it's dead. But what I'm going to do is get a battery over here and hook it up and see what happens. But yeah, we've definitely got some rust to deal with here. Like at the back here, that's the old floor pan. The studs should have 2 studs coming out of here, but they've rusted, they're gone. You can see the 2 studs are there on this side. But yeah, some fairly heavy rusting from wet carpet and that. And of course this is all the lifting mechanism here, so yeah, the rust has not been kind to any of that. So what I'm going to do is take off some of this plastic trim around here, and it looks like we've got a bolt here or nut and another one back here somewhere, and I think the main frame will come off the lift mechanism, so that's going to make things a lot easier to see. Yeah, there's another nut just hiding down in there. So that one there, and I think the main, then we can get rid of the actual seat frame, which is, obviously that's going to need some love at some point, but not right now. The moment I want to get a little bit better access to these transmissions, and all this is the teeth, which run, that's your backward and forwards, and then that one's your up and down. So yeah, dig a little deeper into that. So I'm going to start tearing it apart, and then it will be a lot easier to see. We'll get some voltage over here, a battery, and see what works and what doesn't. Alright, hang tight guys. Right, well, we've got some juice running to it now, and so this is live now. If we go to these little solenoids, not sure whether you can hear that, but we're getting a nice little click out of that solenoid, and that one, and that one. So we've got 3 solenoids that are working, which is all good. Not getting any life out of the motor. And they're a very old school motor. They're you see, it's, I don't know whether you can see from where the camera's at, there's 3 wires going to the motor, and to make them go forward and backwards, they're not a reverse polarity motor. There is another term for it, it eludes me right now today as to what the term is, but most modern electric motors, you just reverse the power, the positive and the negative, and the motor turns the opposite direction. These have a power supply I'm trying to remember how it works, and I now need to do a little bit of research. But the reason there's 3 wires is it runs. You run power to a different brush that's in a different clock position around the armature, and that's what makes it change direction. So that's a little interesting. So we need to figure that one out. I mean, this is a work in progress. This is like Saturday morning, guys, and we're just messing around. So got a little bit of figuring out to do. At least the solenoids work, so that's a start. The switch, the little power switch, is kind of coming apart here. That needs a little bit of love. And what I thought was we had 2 cables coming out of the base of the seat. One was black, one was red, and I'm thinking, oh, that's positive and ground, right? Yeah, no. This is actually, when you strip it back, this is green, and that runs up to the cigarette lighter, so that's an easy one. But yeah, we're going to need to pull this apart and dig a bit deeper into these electrics. So, but, you know, 3 working solenoids in the transmission is a start. The motor, may be dead. We just have to see, and try and resurrect this switch in this relay. All right, I'm going to dig in. Probably going to clean this wiring up and take some good up close pictures of the wiring, just so we can. Committing that to memory is going to be disastrous. So let me do that, and do a bit of cleaning, and get some pictures, and we'll start blowing it apart. Okay, so the motor and the switches are here on the bench. So I've been fairly busy. I've been kind of pulling stuff apart and cleaning it. So this is the main switch, all right, which up and down, backwards and forwards. This attaches onto the back of it, and this is really where the business starts to happen. This is an up and down switch here, forward and back. And the nice thing discovered with this is actually held together with 4 little screws. So you can pop it apart and actually clean, which is what I did, cleaned all the contacts, greased them with dielectric grease. You know, a little bit of the old dielectric grease goes a long way. So that's, you know, and I've checked it for, you know, for connectivity, and the switch is all working great. Right, going to the motor, I did track down like an internal short in the motor, which I fixed. We just had to pop the end cap off it. A little bit of wiring had chafed through, and that was like allowing the power was going straight to ground through the body, which is never a good thing. So I fixed that. So then the motor was turning, so that wasn't really a big deal. Next thing was this $400 relay. And try as I might, we had one terminal broken off it. It's a 4-pin relay, and the one terminal's just off, and you could have tried to solder that. But even like just putting power and grounds, I could not make this work. It's unfortunately a dead $400. So if anyone wants an ornament that could be worth $400, let me know. So that's done. So I had to get a little bit of Kiwi ingenuity onto it, and it's like, well, it's a relay, it's doing a job, it's basically reversing the polarity of the motor. Chrysler had done it fairly cleverly with one relay. What I've done, so I didn't have to buy a $400 relay, I bought $10 relays, 2 of them, so I'm still 10% of the cost. What I did was attach the relays where this one used to screw on. We've got a ground for the motor, it's grounded to the body. These are your forward and reverse. Because this is not, like I was saying in the other, earlier in the video, it's not a reversible engine or motor. You don't just reverse the power and the ground to make it change. It actually has 2 different, a winding on each side of the motor, and one makes it go clockwise, one makes it go anti-clockwise. So we had to convert the signal from the switch to the motor, into the relay, which sent out then a nice big. I replaced this main power feed wire with a little bit newer. It worked, the old one, but it was very stiff. This is nice and flexible, so we just ran a new power cable. So when we looped it over to both relays, We grounded both relays. The forward and reverse wire goes to the other pin on the relay, and then you got your signals in, which is this blue and white wire, and that goes into the switch and runs backwards and forwards. Now if we ground this motor, if I've done it right, it should work from the switch. So yep, that's your forward and back, and that's up. It's all, you know, clockwise and anti-clockwise, but that's the up and down at the front, which is working, up and down at the back, which is working, and forward and back, which is working. So that's a functioning unit now. That's a functioning unit. Next is the transmission. Now the other little trick on here is these three plugs you see here go to the solenoids in the transmission. So I do just need to check that when we hit the switch to make it go, to make the motor turn, these should light up. These should get an electrical current which fires the solenoid, which puts it into gear. So depending, oh yep, there we go. So that's forward or up and down. That's working. Yeah, the next one. So we're getting a signal to go to fire the solenoids. We get that one. We got 3 out of 3. So I'm going to go and grab the transmission, and you know, which is what basically divides the drive from the one motor into the 3 different sets of cables. So let me go and grab that. So here's our transmission. This is, I've never had one of these apart. It's quite neat. You've got a little rubber drive here, and that little shape there is matched to this little shape, and that will slide onto there if you get them lined up right. It just goes onto there and engages in that rubber, so it takes the shock loading out of it. You know, so you don't try, you know, I think that makes it a little bit easier on the gears and the transmission when you hit the switch, because like, you know, even like a Tesla, you know, like one thing that electric motors has is a lot of instant torque. So I know we're talking a small scale here, but they needed something to soften that connection so that it didn't just hit with the motor and break a gear. So obviously I popped those apart. Now I was getting life out of those, but we will just check that again. So again, we ground this, and do we have life? Are we live? No, we're not live. Helps if you have the other end of the cable connected to power. Here's me thinking it had died. We'll try again. Oh, there we go. Listen to that. So that's one gear. That's, I'm not sure which job these 3 different ones. You'll see there's 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm not sure which one does which job yet. We haven't figured that out yet, but they all are all firing, which is kind of neat. So you get your drive goes in here, this little bush that spins. At the moment it's in neutral, it's not doing anything. So what I'm going to do now is pop this thing apart, because I want to take it apart anyway. Kind of fascinates me as to just how it works. I've not had one of these apart, so not quite sure how it works and how the gears select and that sort of thing. Plus it's got 65-year-old grease or whatever in there. I'm assuming it's not been apart. 68-year-old grease. So I'm gonna assume that it needs to be cleaned and a little bit of love, like everything else with a 65-year-old car. I'm just holding on to it because I don't know whether it's going to fly apart or what it's going to do. I don't want pieces going all over the workshop and then not being able to find them. So there's some spring pressure in there, definitely pushing it apart. Huh. Ooh, that's a bit nasty in there. That's not very greasy grease anymore. So that's okay. So let's look at this thing. We've got a ton of gears. We've got a gear on the side coming in at the angle. That's your main drive gear. And that's spinning. That's meshing with all the gears at the same time. And that's your solenoid. So this goes in and, okay, so this is like a selector. Yeah, this just needs a lot of cleaning. Wow, this is so cool. It's like a little selector fork, like you get in a transmission. And that's kind of like your selector hub, but it's a dog drive setup. That's really cool. So let's try and get that back down in there. We can't get that to slide in. I'm guessing a bit at how this works, but I think that's meant to go down over there. Yep, there we go, look at that. Okay, so when that goes, oh, can you get right in there, Steve? At the moment, it's quite springy. Sorry guys, let me try and get that down there again. Okay, so as it goes down, just down in here, as that goes down, it goes in there and it drives. When you turn the gear here, it's turning that, which is where the cable goes in. Cable plugs in there. It's like an oversized speedometer cable, like double the normal speedometer size. And then as that's spinning, it's turning that cable. Then you let that one go, and it stops driving it. So that one, these are coming up further than they're meant to by the look of it. So yeah, when you say this one, that solenoid fires, pulls this pin down. So you get all the splines lined up. So I'd say that's about where it rides normally. And then that solenoid fires, comes down, locks it in. And these are trying to follow, but they're not actually engaged. Whereas that one, yeah, that's hard. It's from that gear to that gear to that gear to this gear, and then it drives that. This is a really clever little thing. It blows my mind. But man, I just love these little things. Are just so cool. That's for all money. It looks like the selector shaft in it's not selector shaft, the selector fork, you know, in your T5 Tremor. Just a much smaller scale. And the way it locks into that little hub, it's just like they work on a full-size manual transmission. That slides down or gets pulled down. It locks in on these four little teeth, and away you go. So when it's going, because you can, one of these drives the up and down on the back of the seat, one of them drives the up and down on the front of the seat. So you can run one and just tilt, you know, raise and lower the back edge of the seat. Run the other one, it just raises and lowers the front of the seat. Or you can hit both solenoids and it'll engage both these cable, and the seat will just go up or down, not tilting. So, but the way I mean, somebody, that was 65 years ago, someone dreamed this up. And I hope that makes sense to you. It makes sense to me looking at it now, but I've got a little bit better view than you guys. I've got 3D. But that is really cool. That was well worth pulling it, for nothing else, just to see how it worked. That was well worth the. It's going to be fun getting it back together, because we've got to hold these down while we get that top casing on. So that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, that's really, we're going to call that part one now for this electric seat, because we're already, this is a fairly long video already. So we're going to get that cleaned up, reassemble it, get it all nicely, freshly lubed up, and so that'll be that. And then we'll have all this stuff here will be working, ready to go. And we've got to get those rusted up lumps at each end of the seat that do the gears and cogs, that the full-size gears and cogs that actually lift the seat up and down. These are just what drives the cables. So the stuff that was sitting on the floor in the wet carpet for several decades, that's a bit nasty, so we're going to pull that completely apart get all the rust and corrosion off it, get it all freed up, because at the moment it's solid. It will not, nothing moves. So we got a bit of work to do there, so that's going to be, that'll be another week till we get to that. But this is good progress, man. I'm happy with this. We got a working motor, working switch, working transmission, and yeah, that's a good part of the battle. Alright guys, well that's it, end of part 1. Watch out for part 2, it'll be coming your way soon because I'm kind of excited to get this going. Yeah, alright, we'll see you on the next video. Take it easy guys. Okay, but wait, there's more. I thought we'd finished the video, but we actually hadn't. Mainly because trying to get this, we've got it all greased up and pretty and clean, and trying to get this top case back on, it did not want to go on. Because the little springs and these solenoid plungers are holding this up. When you get it all slid down into place and you're kind of trying to hold it with 3 fingers and get that gear case back on top, they were coming out of mesh and could not get the top down. And we've been fighting this for a little bit now. This is why we kind of come back and thought, okay, if anyone else is doing this, they're going to have the same thing. And it's like, how do you hold these low enough and get your big fat fingers out of the way while you get the top case back on? So what we decided to do was let the solenoids do the work. So that required making up a quick little 3-wire thing here. We're just going to plug these on. Hope it's going to work. It's a theory, you know. So we got those there. Now, this is fiddly work. It's you need to test your patience a little, I'll be honest with you. So we got to get the keyways lined up. See, it goes all the way down like that. That's one down. That's 2. As soon as you let it go, it shoots back up. But that's about there is where it sits. I would say, looking at the wear marks, that's about the height when it's disengaged, and then it pulls all the way down to engage. But there's not enough room to get your fingers in there. We tried with picks and stuff like that to try and hold it down, and it really wasn't working. So I'm like, well look, the solenoids hold it down, so why not let the thing that, you know, the electrics do their job, you know? So my theory is we give it a ground. Now, I don't know whether you can see this or not, but I'm just going to connect that. Oh, and I felt them move down. I don't know whether you heard it, but look at that, that's holding it down. Yay. We've tried like 15 times to get this puppy on here, and it was just not working. Because every time you let it go, it jumps up and slides out of the splines, and it's like, ah! Look at that. Easy. Well, so I just wanted to come back and show you that, you know, things don't always go swimmingly. You know, sometimes it's a trap. So, and I figured if you guys are actually going to do this, any of you, this is going to be a real handy little tip. So let's just get a couple of screws in there. And the screws are plenty long enough, I'll give them that. Right, now we can disconnect the power, and yeah, all is good. Everything's in there where it's meant to be. We can get rid of those. But yeah, it just kind of came to me, it's like, why not just let the solenoids do their job? And they did. Cool. Now it's the end. Wait for part 2. Coming your way soon. Take it easy, guys.